that focus on cultural awareness around Black history, around Palestine, around equality issues, any of those areas, they're told, no, you know, that you don't need to look at that. Don't look at that. Nobody's interested in that. You need to move away from that. Yet, white artists can come in and do a project on that, and they tend to be applauded and encouraged and showcased. But Black artists are not given those same opportunities, and we know that's because of discrimination in the industry. And it's not that they want to be typecast or labelled. Obviously, artists do a broad range of work, whatever your race, religion, culture is. You can create art on anything, but often artists want to create something that's about them, that's about their experience, their life, something they can tell a story about through their art. So this is what they're experiencing. So through the trade union movement and the TUC, my role on the TUC Race Relations Committee, we've been curating I've been curating this exhibition every year, which brings young artists, and it's open to any young artist, and we'll be doing another one in April, and I'll be doing a call out for submissions. So if you know of any young artists, or you're a young artist yourself and you're interested, I don't put a sort of upper age limit. I leave it for you to define whether you feel young or not. But if you're 80, then you may not qualify. So yeah, if you do know anybody, come and speak to me. I'm around, you know, after the speeches, and let me know. But there's some of my cards on the table if I'm not here, because I want to try and get people who don't have the opportunity, haven't had the opportunity to exhibit at all in particular, to come into this year's exhibition. And what I've been trying to do is to try and tour the exhibition. But if you're doing that with no funding, it's a really, really hard slog, because you're having to base it on the will of organisations and structures to host the exhibition and put it on. So again, plug for venues. If anybody has any spaces for art venues for us to put the art on, please let us know. The exhibition that we did this year, that's still touring, where we're getting bookings, is Roots, Culture, Identity. And it wasn't that I designed the exhibition to be entitled that and then said the art needed to fit into it. It was the art that was submitted fitted in with that theme, so that's how it got the title. And earlier this year, but no, we're in 2015, at the end of last year, I was involved in a campaign against the human zoo. Does anybody know about the human zoo and what happened there? And basically, for those who don't know, it was an exhibition that was hosted by the Barbican in London, and it was an exhibition by a white South African artist, Brett Bailey, who was creating exhibits of historical events, historical atrocities to Black people. So, for example, he had Black people in cages, but he didn't have models or waxworks. He used real people and put them in the cage. A woman chained by her neck to a bed, waiting to be raped. It's all from the colonial rule, so it's basically replicating the Victorian zoos. So some of our, we launched a campaign against this human zoo, because as far as we were concerned, yes, you can call it art, and I embrace art, I'm an artist myself, but if you're doing something that actually is painful and hurtful to people, and who are still living with the legacy of those events today, that's offensive and derogatory, it doesn't justify it by just saying, oh, well, it's art. So that's the label we've applied to it, and that makes it acceptable. We faced a lot of abuse. We faced some opposition, but actually there were hundreds of thousands of people that supported the campaign for a petition. We did a series of protests, and the exhibition closed on the opening night. The Barbican closed it, but the institutional racism that we experience here in the UK meant that when they closed the exhibition down, they put up a statement that said that we were extreme and violent, and they had to close the exhibition down because we were extreme and violent. And if you look at some of the news coverage from reporters that weren't even there on the night the exhibition closed, you'll see that they talked about, well, a lot of them had dreadlocks. A lot of them were black. You know, yes, a lot of them were black, but there were white people, there were Asian, there's lots of different people there. And obviously, there were a lot of people from the African diaspora because it's something that particularly impacted on them in the exhibition. And the police, riot police, didn't go to the venue, because actually, although it was hosted by the Barbican, it wasn't, it didn't take place, it took place in the vaults in Waterloo. But somebody decided to authorize riot police to go to the Barbican, because they couldn't even get the venue right. But they weren't at the Barbican as a result of this alleged violence and extreme behaviour that we apparently did. And there's video footage to show that there was no extreme behaviour by us. They were recruited beforehand, because they were there before the protest even took place. So somebody decided to bring police in and to fund these riot police come in huge numbers to attack us and intimidate us away from the protest. So some people are trying to say that this is censorship, that we're trying to censor art. And what we're saying, it's not censorship, it was a boycott campaign. And if we're boycotting something, we have a right to do that. And we know on Palestine, that's something that we're trying to do. And in the anti-apartheid movement, which I was also involved in as a student, that's something that was a successful way of campaigning that created an international campaign, an international response to racism and apartheid. And when we went to see the Barbican, we actually had a meeting with the Barbican board, but they didn't want to meet us. They tried to fob us off. They tried to send us away, and it's only because the City of London Authority owns the Barbican that we lobbied them. And I think this was the first time that there'd been a public lobby of the City of London Authority, but actually, or corporation rather. I think they were really shocked to see, you know, like so many black people coming and campaigning outside their council meeting. And they didn't want to engage with us either, but they didn't like the bad publicity, because they're not used to getting bad publicity. They just kind of do what they're doing and get on with it, and everyone leaves them alone. And they're, you know, they've got a huge wealth. That's another issue altogether, you know, if we're still going to start a new campaign. So they pressurised the Barbican into meeting with us. And when we asked the Barbican, one of the criticisms of the Barbican, you haven't seen the exhibitions, you can't say you don't like it. But if we know, if somebody tells us that somebody's going to cut somebody's throat in a racist attack, you're not going to wait till their throat is cut, are you, to say, I don't like this and I'm opposed to this. When we asked the Barbican, had they seen the exhibition, they said no, they hadn't. Actually, there was video footage and photographs, so you could see the full exhibition online. They hadn't, apart from one person had seen it. So that they could book the exhibition based on nobody seen it, but we couldn't say we didn't like it based on nobody seen it. We asked them if they'd done an equality impact assessment. No. We asked them if they had consulted black communities to see what their views were, anti-racist organisations, which we knew they didn't, because we were a coalition of anti-racist organisations and individuals that were involved in the campaign. And they said they didn't know who the black community were. And anybody that's based in London will know that the Barbican is based on a housing estate that is full of a multicultural community, which includes black communities. So for them to say they don't know who the black community is tells us that they need to find out. So when we asked them, you know, what had they commissioned in terms of art that they would put on, you know, by local black artists or even UK-based black artists, we found that there was virtually nothing. There'd been sort of 1 or 2 projects they'd done. But they had quite a lot of international black artists come and perform at the Barbican. So they wouldn't engage any further with us. They wouldn't listen to our view. They kept telling us it's important work. And we kept asking them, important for who? And they couldn't answer the question. And we've seen a series of events, and I'm not going to get into a long discussion about Charlie Hebdo, but what we've seen after, and that was, you know, a horrific event that happened. Those people didn't deserve to die. But what we've then seen is that I Am Charlie tag used to endorse, you know, the publication and to celebrate that publication. But the reality is that publication put out racist and sexist and Islamophobic, anti-religious messages all the time that did offend. So there's a big debate there about, you know, is art that's offensive, should it just be supported and celebrated? Sorry?
It offended the Pope as well.
Yes, exactly. So as I said, anti-religious. It wasn't just Islamophobic. There was all different religious groups that they put offensive stuff out about. So there's been quite a lot of debate about art and censorship that's been going on over the last year. And I think that we need to have a better debate on this. There needs to be more consultation with communities. But I think that's why events like this are fantastic, because it allows people to express themselves without that restriction of being told, you can't do this in your art, you can't do that in your art, you can't do stuff that's about race, that's about culture, that's about the issues that are happening to you. And you know, this is a fantastic example of a creative, community-focused art exhibition. But in terms of the wider institutional racism that we're facing, it is being fueled by austerity, and there is a disproportionate impact on black communities and workers, as there is with women, with LGBT people, with disabled people, and there's a lot of work that's going on to campaign against that. But it isn't just about the impact of austerity, the disproportionate impact. What we're finding is that Britain's becoming a more racist society because of the messages and the policies that are coming out from the government. What that's doing, and that's fueled by the media, who, you know, just support what they're doing. And I think what we have to do is look at who the media is owned by, who it's run by, and why it's supported in that way. And there's not sort of fair coverage in the mainstream media, the right-wing media. But we're seeing that people are becoming emboldened to express racist views, which is why we're seeing more racist attacks, Islamophobic attacks on individuals, because that empowers people. People feel empowered. If you've got a racist government, you've got a racist media, and you know racism is not challenged effectively, then people become empowered to express those racist views. That's why we've got the EDL. You know, we've got rid of BNP in terms of elections, but we've got the EDL on our streets, and it's not just you know, fascism in the UK. It's across Europe. And the other horrific thing we've got at the moment to deal with is UKIP. And I believe UKIP is a racist party, and I know there's a debate going on, are they racist or are they not? In my view, they are, but I also think they're anti-trade union, they're sexist, they're against disabled people, they're, you know, against lots of different groups. But people are actually being fooled by UKIP and thinking that they are a legitimate party and an alternative to the mainstream parties. I can understand why people are looking for an alternative to mainstream parties, because I think they're much the same as each other. And in terms of their view on race and immigration. And last year, the government introduced the Immigration Act. And the Immigration Act is the most racist piece of legislation I've seen in my lifetime, which seeks to create like an apartheid-like state in the UK, and a return to the no blacks, no Irish, no dogs signs that my parents' generation saw when they came to the UK. And it's been rolled out, it's been piloted and rolled out in stages, but effectively it means that public service workers, as well as like, private service providers like landlords, will have to police immigration status. And immigration status is complicated enough for those people that specialise in it and have the expertise. But to expect landlords to expect, for example, to get a driving licence, to get married, your immigration status will be checked. And also there's going to be limitations on your access to the National Health Service when you're ill, which is quite horrific. So one of the things I've been doing through another organisation I'm involved in, MAX, the Movement Against Xenophobia, which is made up of 120 civil society organisations, trade unions, immigration expertise organisations, is we try to campaign against the Immigration Act, but it's been introduced now. So the next stage really is to try and counter, you know, the anti-immigration policy and ideas that we've seen out there.